Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Happy Memorial Day. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mikey. This is John. We're a couple of kooks. Let's get into it. Dad, what do we got for the people today?
Today, a few weeks ago, I showed a custom payload that I had done, and
Mhm.
I did that using a couple of fairly inexpensive figures that you can buy pretty cheap right now. And I thought that you and I would do a little competition, and each one of us take that same basic recipe and make something kind of cool. So I think for this one, we will. Since Payload in 1994, they did a green and black version, which is what I tried to do. It had silver accents. And then they did the exact same figure on the old barbecue Eco Warriors mold in blue and black with gold highlights. So since I've already done a green one, I'm going to do a blue one and you do another green one. And then I've also done a little bonus while I was working on it, another fairly easy to acquire setup. So that's kind of the plan. So
Nice.
that's where I'm at.
We've been busy with the classified customs in the last few days,
We
trying to
have.
get this done. A lot
I, ha-
yesterday and a lot
I hadn't
today.
done anything for a while, so it was a learning experience for me, kind of getting back into it.
In the Dremel, dusting the dirt off the Dremel. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
We got Cliff here. Good evening, sir. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Cliff.
And then we've got Mom. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Shannon.
Well, let's start this thing up. So, classified payload in the Star Brigade style. What do we need to start that project? What would they have to acquire to do something close to what we set out to do?
Okay. So you want to share
Morning,
my
Jimmy.
screen there, and we've got that's the payload we're going for. I made that with a few basic classified parts, but the main one was the main two parts you need is a Destro and this Buzz Lightyear 2 pack that you can get on Amazon. When Buzz Lightyear, that 2 pack is on sale, you can usually get it for $10 or less. Right now, I think it's 13.97 or something like that. That Destro behind the open Destro there was one I picked up at Walmart on clearance for $9. So you can pick up one of the cheap Destros. This is a great custom to use. There was also at one time you could get the original Destro for pretty cheap. Either way, you're going to end up with a really good base for this custom. I like the more slender look on a spaceman for this sort of a thing. Uh, I don't know. The head that I used was from a wrestling figure, and it's a little big. I went ahead and used that same head again on my new one,
Mhm.
the one that I worked on this last week, and it looks all right. But I am going to try to find something a little different later. For now, he has a very military look, and it kind of does have the same hair color as Payload, so I thought it was a good match. So that is what you're going to start with. Now, I also my bonus figure that I worked on was I used a barbecue. Now there's a bat in this picture, but this barbecue body, I got to kind of thinking about using the exact same Buzz Lightyear accessories, but making an homage to the orange and black roadblock that reused the General Hawk body. So that is going to be another piece we're going to use. I'm going to show how to use it. And again, these are the two pieces we're going to be working with. And I thought I did some video, but it's awful. It was my first time really doing a video like that. We'll go through it and pick out the stuff that's important and kind of show you some of the ways that I go about breaking down these two figures. Classified figures are mostly boil and pop, and the nice thing about both barbecue and destro is even though a lot of collectors don't like them, the exposed pin joints make it extremely easy to customize. You don't have to worry about how you're going to put everything back together or any of that because the pins do all the work. So there's a lot of boil and pop. Buzz Lightyear is a little more of a challenge, which is all right because that's some of the stuff I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to show you how to break that figure apart, assuming you're not going to use any of the pieces that are on it other than the parts for the custom. So that's what we're going to do. And that's the intro, I guess. That is what we're going to use. So far, looking at what is right there, I am in maybe at most 25 bucks to do one.
Which is what you pay for a classified figure off the shelf. But,
yeah. If you wanted to do painting, a lot of painting of the figure, that was my goal, was to not do a lot of painting on the base figure. I didn't want to do that. There are some challenges to this build where you'll have to deal with that. But for the most part, you're just going to be putting together these pieces, doing some custom work on the Buzz Lightyear chest, and the rest of it is all pretty simple. So I will show the next slide that I have to do this break apart. These are the tools that I use.
Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Good to see you. So these are the required tools.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple. You'll also need. I don't usually do. I'm usually doing more than one part at a time. I won't do a lot of. I don't do the microwave water method because I'm going to be doing several stages at once. So I just like to have the water boiling and just go drop the parts in as I'm doing the work. So you will need something for that. That's what the rag is for. Is when you pull it out of the pan, it's obviously super hot, and the water is very uncomfortable if it gets on you. That's just the truth of it. That funny looking barbecue fork, I use that to pull parts out of the pan. It works really great when you do a whole body. You will need to pop the pins. You will need either a punch or an awl of some kind. I like using a punch because the end is flat. If you get it soft enough, it will come out pretty easy. The piece of wire is for parts that you don't want to submerge completely, and you can hang them on the wire and hang them over the boiling water just for a little bit without getting your hand burned. Obviously, a couple of screwdrivers and a few pairs of pliers. I end up using those channel locks more than anything else when I do something like this. So that is that.
Scuba Pete, thanks for being here, buddy. Good to see you too. My tools are fairly similar. I'm generally just doing one at a time, so I do just microwave about a cup and a half of water for about 2 minutes. Let stuff sit, prevents it from getting too pliable, too malleable. And then I have a flat set of. I've got some reverse pliers that I usually use to, like that Lightyear one. I just use those to crack the torso, and then beforehand I just ran the heat gun over the seams. That worked well for me. But definitely on the punch, I use a pretty legitimate punch. Works fantastic for me. That's it right there. That and a soft-headed hammer. So don't do too much damage. That's pretty much what I do. I stopped doing the cutting of the torsos, especially on the classifieds. They move a little too much. Got too dangerous.
The thing to remember about the Buzz Lightyear is the torso is hard plastic. And you really do have to be careful when you boil hard plastic because you can warp it. But what you want to do is you want to put it in the water long enough to expand the glue, the two pieces of plastic, to expand them out. And then when you pull them out of the water, they retract, and that makes the bond of the glue kind of come apart. So if you could unshare that for a minute, I will switch over to a video. Let's see what I can find here.
Scuba's got a question for you, Pop. He said, for the screwdrivers, what's the preferred ratio of orange juice to vodka?
I'm going to go with 3/4 orange juice and 1/4 vodka.
Oh, okay.
Until you get 2 in, and then you just switch that around.
When you start running out of OJ?
Yeah, eventually you're going to run out. You don't want to use it all in the setting, and you don't want to have to stop in the middle to go to the store.
Good tip. Good tip. We promised tips, so that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I tried.
All right. Let's see, on a video.
All right. Let's see. All right. So I have oops. Hold on. All right, this one's very unexciting. So I'm going to hold off on it, but I do want to show the first thing you can do with Buzz Lightyear is break his legs. All right, you want to share my screen there. I'm going to run through this. Here it is fresh out of the package. And you see I'm just clamping those channel locks right on the seam. And what I'm going to do here, because I do not care to save these legs, I am just going to break them apart. So I will squeeze it until you see it start to pop. I go ahead and do the other side the same way. These are terrible videos. And then I squeeze them a little more, and you see they're really starting to separate here. That's because the joint is glued at the knee. So I just peel it, I just grab it and pull it off here. There's one leg, there's
like
the other leg. Just like crab legs, yeah. So there's the result. All right. And next, got those apart. Now I'm gonna break the waste piece off of Buzz here, and I'm going to use the large screwdriver. And as you can see, it comes apart pretty easy. And this is what we have. And now, again, I'm terrible with my camera work, but I am just going to use the screwdriver to peel the legs apart. You see here, it just breaks off. Oh. It's broken there. There was a little piece of that holding that joint together. I had to break it off. That's what the cutters are good for. You see it right here. And I'm just going to use the pliers and break that off. Now we have boots. All right. Pretty simple. I'm going to dive in here, and I'm just going to crack this thing apart. You've got a hole right here. It's an easy spot to do it. Okay, that's a terrible video because I didn't make it happen there. I couldn't do it, so here's what I'm going to do. The hot water going. Buzz is going in. This is me really trying to prove that the fork is a good idea. I don't know. But what I don't want here is I do not want him to set on the bottom. So I'm going to use the fork to lay in the pan and hold him from going all the way in. That's what I'm doing there. I will pull him out. Lay him on the fancy towel. Take him over to the workbench. Head pops right off real nice. You see there's a little crack there showing where it has kind of come apart. Now I will use the screwdriver. I attempt to pull his head out. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. This one came off real nice. There it goes. And that's the hole you have left. That's just showing how that works. I'm going to pull the arms out so I have access to the sides because they're nice and soft now. And again, I did not show that very good, but that's what you got. You got the ring, and you can see here, you can see that crack has expanded where the glues come apart.
How much time do you think was invested in the breaking the figure apart?
Along with waiting, not counting waiting for water to boil, obviously, this maybe took 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes of breaking all this apart to get Buzz completely ready for the change. I took the awl and just started wiggling it around in there to break it apart. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to get a little crazier. Oh, that is out of order. Wow, that was a goofy mistake.
Rookie.
But you will get to where you can just crack this thing apart. I think I already did this video. Yeah, sorry. You will eventually stick the screwdriver in there and it will pop the entire torso apart. I can't believe I don't have a picture of that. These are the pieces you'll end up with. These are all the pieces you want to use. You definitely want to use you want to leave the legs together. That is the double leg joint is glued inside, and there is no reason in this to take it apart unless you absolutely have to. So I did not. So these are the pieces you're going to use for Buzz. All right, you can stop sharing that.
So that's the harvesting of the parts. Scuba says he's a visual learner, so he likes the videos. That's good.
This seems like kind of silly and going over this stuff, but a lot of people don't know this stuff, and I just thought it would be helpful. I'm really a fan of doing this method just because it's simple. I mean, the cutting apart of the torso that you'll have to do here in a little bit to really make this thing fit is intensive, and it is definitely a little more than beginner level, but I think you'll see what we need to do here. Let's see.
I mean, we had talked, a couple weeks ago when we were kind of pitching this idea to one another, but we kind of had this idea of doing these classified customs and kind of gearing it towards showing people that maybe don't do it how to do it, because it's really not that difficult, especially like a project like this. There's two figures involved, and you're just figuring out how to get the figure apart to do what you want to do, and then putting it back together. And it sounds complicated until you see it. It's very simple. It's very rudimentary.
Yeah, in this project, we won't talk about so much the painting and all of that. This is the project of breaking the figures. This is the process of breaking them apart. And like I said, you have two things you're going to be doing. You're going to be cutting the torso to make it work, and you're going to be boil and pop. Those are the two things you're going to use the most. And the cutting of the torso is probably the most difficult. And I did show some of that, and we'll talk about using a Dremel and the tricks to that. Sometimes that scares people, especially, when you think about how badly you can get hurt by a bit or, chew your hand up. But to do Buzz Lightyear's feet, I have this other video showing the boil and pop and how I use that wire.
All right. Take a look.
All right, so here the water is hot. I have them suspended, and I'm just dipping the feet in. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that the foot joint on this Buzz Lightyear is a soft material, but so are the feet. But the ankle that goes into the leg, if it gets hot, it will break. So you're really just wanting to warm up the feet. And this is one of those things where using a heat gun gently or another way of warming the feet would probably work. But using the wire, I'm just suspending the feet themselves in the water. So that is that one. Now, while they're soft, I will use these pliers. Grab a hold of that joint that is the ankle joint so that I don't tear it out. Use another pair of pliers to pull these off. I will say that the joints point forward. So when you pull them out, you want to pull, like the foot is like this, or the leg is like this. You want to pull the foot off like this. It doesn't go straight in. It's off at an angle into where your shoelaces would be. That's where the angle goes in. So you want to pull it that way. And that's what I did.
A lot of the classifieds are like that too. That's that rocker ankle. That's how they get that. Is the peg goes into the foot at a 45, and so that's a trick that's used amongst Legends and Star Wars. Any figure you do, they're all going to come apart that same way like that.
Right, and you don't think about that, but that is something that is a very common way of doing that joint now. Used to be the joint went straight into the foot, but that didn't leave as much room for the swing of the articulation, so they changed that up.
Right. A lot of the 118 stuff, the peg is on the foot, and it goes into the shin, into the calf.
Here I do the same thing. I'm doing it 4 times because I have 4 feet to do 2 different figures. And when it's done, now we have the pieces.
Nice.
Hey, Matt.
Matt Noon, thanks for coming, man. No problem. You didn't miss much. You're just in time for the good stuff. Thanks for coming.
So this is what you're gonna have.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Patrick. So these are the pieces you're gonna have out of that Buzz Lightyear kit. So your $10 or $13, these are the parts that you want to have from that kit. As we talk about this later, you might decide that you want to use the rifle from Buzz Lightyear, which is totally fine. The hand grip on it is a little wide, but it's legitimately a pretty cool space gun.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. And on the cost of something like that, like we said, that Buzz Lightyear 2-pack is anywhere from $8 to $14, depending on how Amazon has it marked on clearance or whatever.
Right. When you buy it and when they show it, that's one of those things. I leave them in my cart for save for later, and it usually gives me plenty of updates as to when the price goes down.
Right. So you think you're only using like maybe 20% of that 2-pack, but when you think about it, if you're buying anything like aftermarket, any kind of third-party stuff, like 3D printed stuff, those parts, a helmet, a chest, legs and feet, that would be $50 easy. So
yeah,
it's still a good value, even though you're using very little of that 2-pack. $10 to $14 is still a very, very reasonable price for that.
Yeah, it is. I don't believe that I showed the boiling of Destro, but I used that same pan I used earlier, and that pan is like a perfect size for a classified figure, 6-inch figure to fit in while the water is boiling. I just tossed the whole Destro in there, and then I start going through and popping him apart. All right, I'm going to speed through this, but here we go. I pop the hands out, pop the arms off, pop the legs off. And here we go with the popping of these pins. I did not show it very well, but this is what you're going to do. You're just going to put that in there and push it through. Using a punch is way easier. This thing was too sharp, and I ended up doing another video, I believe, with a different way to do it, but you're just going to punch it through. You don't need it at all. But you are going to need the thigh, so however you want to punch it. I just like having extra pins. So I just pop all the pins and keep them in a little cup so I have all the pins.
So I use a gunsmith block. That way I can set a leg right in this groove,
nice.
and then use the holes and punch straight through. And then I don't even have to worry about the pin going anywhere. It's right there under the block. This is a super handy tool. You can get them super cheap on Amazon. This was like $10, I think. Really handy, especially for breaking figures apart.
Awesome. One of my favorite parts of this is peeling this chest piece off. It is still warm, still very hot to the touch, so I'm just going to use a pair of pliers, and I'm going to grab a hold of it and just start peeling it. And it will come off, and then here I will use the leverage of the torso to twist it till the glue comes off. Some of them come off real easy, and some come off of them terribly.
You know, we talked. You brought up barbecue earlier, and I don't know how many people realize that barbecue and Destro are the same base figure, except barbecue has different arms. If you take off barbecue's vest,
yeah, and
that is the torso that is underneath there.
Yeah, so here's a hot barbecue. Popping the legs off. I go ahead and just cut the torso. There you see it right there. That is Destro's chest.
I guess arms and the neck is the neck is different too. It doesn't have the
neck is different.
Studs around the neck. But yeah. Damn near identical.
So there's the barbecue. Like I said, I did it in tandem. The steps are very similar. And in fact, the steps will be the same to make the Buzz Lightyear fitted. And since the torsos are the same, you could technically use one of them to do your molding later if you wanted to, which we will get into.
Sure.
All right, let's not share for a minute. I'm going to talk about the Dremel for a minute. So the torso part, when you see it,
Scuba's coming in here with some Billy Idol.
Oh,
Eyes without a face. Good reference.
That is exactly how I remember that song. Hold on.
You ready to share a screen?
Not yet. Give me.
Let me know.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and show this movie. All right, yeah, I'll go ahead and share here.
This is the inside of the Buzz Lightyear torso?
Yes. Mm-hmm. It is incredibly clunky. I was going to use a sanding drum, a Dremel sanding drum, but it's just not really worth it. You can use the actual Dremel brand, and it's going to be pretty good. But at the end of the day, you'll be better off to use a cutter like what I end up using, a high-speed bit. So let me just show here. I use these snippers to go ahead and cut off any pieces that I don't want flying off on me. Get them out of the way for the Dremel to do its work.
I definitely did this the hardest way possible.
Yeah, there's the drum. This is why the drum's a pain in the ass.
Pro tip, kids, get Dremel brand Dremel bits. It is worth it.
It is on the drums for sure because they're a thicker material. This one ended up coming off and just putting a bruise on my finger when it spun off. Just beat me up
any
pretty
Dremel
good,
bit
so.
that is multi-piece. So any of the ones that screw into a shaft, the polishing bits, the cutting wheels, the drums, buy the good stuff. I had a bad experience with one of the cutting discs, came right off and lodged into a body panel. It was not good.
But no matter what you use, you'll get to this point here where you'll have it pretty much trimmed down. It's a good video of just the backboard. Let's take a look at this. This is the bit that I recommend the most. This is a number 134.
Hold that up again.
I will in just a second. $134. I also use a 115 for just about everything else.
And that's just the cylindrical one. That's not teardrop.
Yeah, that's the drum. The difference is the drum has a flat end, and this one has the teardrop ball on it. When you're doing something like this, that flat end is also a corner, and it could dig into what you're cutting and cut it way faster. So I will also say here that the Dremel spins clockwise when it's in your hand. So when you cut, you want to cut down and in like this shape. If you try to cut from the other way, that Dremel bit is spinning backwards and it will catch. So if you do that, you have to be holding things very tightly. I use my hands a lot, and my hands look like I use them a lot. If you can get like a really soft piece of leather, like a little 12-inch square of leather that's really soft that you can put in your hand, over your hand, and then hold the part with that. And if you're not much of a sculptor, you want to be really careful that you don't nick and go on, so it doesn't matter. But in this case, what I will do here is just cut this down as much as I can to where you end up with this. So this is where you want the two pieces to look like. You see this hanging down. This is the hose on the outside. So one side is lower than the other, but that's because that hose hangs down. And then we have the issue of the sides. Now, this is really going to be up to you. I don't know if you cut this out, Mikey, or not on yours. Okay.
Yep, I did.
This image shows I really went a little crazy here. What you really want is a little bit of that ledge to stay. It's very helpful when you're doing things later. But you generally want to cut where I've colored it pink. On project, I will use dry erase markers because I can wipe them right off, and it doesn't affect the paint that I might put on later. I don't have to worry about it staining anything or any of that. So this is what you want to cut. And again, the drum bit is awesome for this. You just, again, want to cut down and away as you're cutting, so it won't get out of hand. So here I go. I'm using the teardrop one here just to not get anything. Here I go. So that's what you end up with, and you can clean it up with sandpaper on your finger actually, and get the line exactly how you want it. Just get it close with the Dremel bit. Here I do the other side. So just repeat it. When you're doing your finish work, you will want to put them together, put the two halves together, and just make sure that line's the same so that it feels right and looks right.
Yeah, you want everything to match up. Oh, look who popped in. It's Chad. What's up,
It's
buddy?
Chad. Hey, Chad.
How are you, sir?
This little video I showed just how handy that teardrop shaped bit is, where I can just smooth all that out. I don't have to worry about any of it. I use it for the whole thing. This one I just went kind of rogue on and just did whatever, but you can see that the inside of it is super clean. And that is that. Next couple of things that will happen is this is my favorite glue to use. This is on Walmart.com. We just got it at Walmart. They've changed the look of the packaging, but it's still good glue. The nice thing about this glue is it works pretty good for hard plastic, but it works great on soft plastic. So if you're doing, like you're building your own gun out of pieces of other guns, this stuff works great for that.
How does it react to styrene? Does it melt it, or does it?
No, it won't melt this. It won't melt styrene. It creates a really good mechanical bond. It doesn't create a chemical bond. So if you sand a little off of what you're gluing together and put it together, it'll be great. But it's oh, cool. Also, Mikey, for when he positioned the,
very nice.
That's awesome. When he positioned the front and back torsos together to make sure that you use green stuff, you can use green stuff, but sometimes green stuff isn't easy to find. So what you can do is you can run to Walmart and get this stuff right here. It is a 2-part epoxy, and it's super simple to use. And I think it was around, well, there it is, $6.54 at Walmart. So you can kind of, hey, Paul.
Oh, Vishay dropped in too. Still at work. Just wanted to say hello and boost them numbers. Hey, I appreciate that, buddy. Good to see you.
Awesome.
Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in.
So
we'll try not to step on your toes too much tonight with this broadcast. Thanks for showing up, buddy.
The next little project you're going to want to tackle is that neck piece.
That was
this
a
is
bit
what
of
you're going to kind of want to look like rough. If you weren't fortunate enough for the for that neck to come out, I did a little video on how to cut it out in a little bit.
So on mine, I hit it with the heat gun for just a little bit, and then I used that punch. I just punched it out, and that worked for me. But like you said earlier, the variance on the amount of glue, where the glue is, that changes. I don't know any action figure line that's not the case, where breaking them apart is not the same every time.
Anybody that's taken apart old G.I. Joe vehicles knows that sometimes the stuff just snaps apart, and sometimes the glue is legitimately bonded.
Yeah. It's like those like cars that are made on Friday afternoons, where they just slap the goop on everywhere, all the seam sealers.
I went ahead and carved some of these down to where the shoulders wouldn't get in my way. You just want to work with it. You're going to have this gap in the front pretty much no matter what you do. The figure itself has it. So, but that's the part. This is the part you really care about saving. And then I used the Dremel, and I just, after I had it bonded, I just Dremeled all that out of my way. And there it's fitting in the Destro torso. Next, I'm going to do a little bit about when you put this thing on. The Buzz Lightyear chest is very bulky, and it does move around a lot. On this one, I tried a couple of different ways. Mikey just uses a plastic bag, which is probably way better than this because the tape does offer some resistance when you go to pull it off. But this is what I wanted. Another one I did, I used blue tape, which peels off a lot easier. Whoa.
Yeah. So yeah, you said I use the bag. So I literally, the bags I get, stuff I buy in, I just cut a piece off and left it on there. I've cut slits in them where I can just pull it over the torso and the neck pops through. But yeah, it just totally it doesn't have any adhesive on it. I don't have to worry about painting over it or anything like that. And if you're like me, you got these things lying around and you got them in spades.
Right, you got a plastic bag.
Yeah.
So here's what this plumber's tape looks like. Plumber's putty looks like out of the tube. It's just a plastic bag. Unwrap it. I chop off a piece that I need.
It looks a lot like milliput.
It's very much like milliput. This is the same thing as milliput. Milliput is just more refined to have different grades. This is just rough stuff, and I will say this is very sticky. If you are doing this, I would have an extra set of gloves off to the side, because once you mix it, you're going to have that all over the fingers, and if you touch another part of it. The nice part about this and milliput both is before they set up, they can be cleaned up easily with soap and water. So if you do mix this up and you get it somewhere you don't want, and wipe it off real quick, it'll come off. But it's sticky because it's designed to stick to a pipe to stop a leak, and that's why it's like that.
It is. That is what she said. Yes.
That is exactly what she said. So here I am just kneading that putty, getting it the way that I want it. It's totally mixed. More mixing, fun. And then you see I just put a glob on that torso. Stick it on there, put it together, make sure it's all the way I want to do it on both pieces. I had a little extra, so I was cutting it out before it dries. Being sure to get plenty of it on my fingers, because that's part of the fun.
Yeah, it's part of the experience for sure.
And they are, you want to really watch that. Let me go back to that real quick. While you're putting this thing together, don't lose sight of the fact that needs to pretty much be centered. Your neck post needs to be centered in that hole.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about both of those, so they will just sit. Here it has started to harden, and I went ahead and just stuck some extra putty in there to fill gaps. And then I use one of my favorite secret tools, a regular old knitting needle from Walmart. I love it for doing clay work. This is really just a really good video of my gloves, because I had no idea where the camera was.
Same tool.
That's it.
Very useful tool.
And when you're doing, and they're like $3 for two of them. They're super cheap. You can use them for that. You can use them for any kind of putty you're putting on. Just keep them clean, because it's nice to have them.
You want smooth surface.
You get a bump on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty devastating. So that's what I did videos of. The rest of this figure is just putting it together and painting it.
Oh yeah.
All right, so other pieces that I used to make mine.
Hey, Willis, thanks for joining us.
Hey. To make mine is I used, like I said, I did not take Destro's missiles off. I thought it kind of fit the theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
That color that I used for instead of gold is just a buff color called buff that is just kind of a khaki. And then when I did the wash on it, it really made it look like a dull gold. Fallout or Warhammer vibes, however you want to look at it. But I really like the blue and gold. I wasn't going to do that.
He's got some Fallout influence, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Now that rifle is the much maligned Duke rifle. Mikey and I kind of had a lot of discussions about this, but the early classified stuff has the Nerf guns. Well, they're perfect for space guys.
Very true.
So I used the first gung ho. I used to bulk up the other side to offset the missiles, and then I used Duke's rifle.
And his belt, right?
And his belt, yeah, his belt is also that.
Now the
Now,
belt you can get with the Tiger Force one, which I think everybody could get on clearance.
yeah,
But
you can
the
still grab it.
rifle only came with the
First two versions.
right, yeah, the 1 and 1.1 or whatever.
And in this picture, the hand pulled out a little bit. That is not really how it looks. It was just pulled out because I was trying to put the helmet in it. And it wasn't working. The other figure that I did was this one.
Look at that. Roadblock, baby.
Yeah. This one, I again used the Duke belt. I used the Gung Ho weapon. Barbecue's gauntlets are more substantial, so he did not need any extra gauntlet. But that holster is still from the Destro figure. What I did do is cut up a Snake Eyes belt or uh, strap, bandolier, whatever, and I used the 3 grenades again as an homage to the Star Brigade roadblock that is orange and black.
Yeah, that's rad.
So that the 2 figures I did this week. So I say this week, I really did all of it in like the last 3 days.
Yeah, same. So I guess this is mine. So this is the green version. And that's irritating.
Is that the Viper rifle?
That is the Viper rifle. Yes. And so I pretty much the same build. But I did I used a Televiper belt because it looks kind of futuristic looking.
Yeah, I
And then
like that.
on the other leg is the communicator or whatever that is that low light comes with, and then the gauntlet. I did the same gung ho and the same Destro holster on the right. But yeah, I changed it up. I decided to go with the Viper
Yeah,
rifle, and then I also never mind that
there it is.
jetpack.
Oh, you used another piece out of that Buzz Lightyear set.
I did, and it's actually magnetic. Put a magnet in there, and a magnet in there. That just clips on there. That's some Griblies there, and that's just the steel core jetpack. And then to make sure it fit on there really well, I just added did some extra green stuff right here on the back. Put a little plastic on there, and then just smushed it on there so it's got nice solid contact. And then that's a Duke head. I just little green stuff mustache and a repaint, and that's
That looks really good.
he turned out pretty nice.
I might see if JMK Customs can do a couple of heads for mine.
Oh yeah, you just message him. He's probably not doing anything anyway.
I heard he doesn't have much to do this time of year.
Yeah, that's probably true. So on the accents, I where you did like color pop on the actual uniform, I just opted to do some gray and just
That's
break
nice
it up a
though. It
little
looks
bit.
good.
And then the
Looks really good.
dark wash and some silver highlights on the panels to make him look like he's he's not new to this. Payload's been doing this for a minute.
Yeah. I thought with the roadblock, I really didn't want him to. At first, I was just going to do him in all black, but then I thought the metallic dry brush would really bring it out.
I really like the what we used to call that the pewter style, right?
Yeah.
When we did
Yeah. It gives it.
dark under and then silver dry brush was the pewter appearance. Yeah, that looks really good. Yeah, I like that a lot. Now we just need to find him a good heavy space gun.
Yeah, I actually thought that it probably wouldn't be a bad use to use the rifle that roadblock came with.
Oh yeah, 'cause he's got that real long one that looks like a
Yeah,
yeah, that would do.
yeah. So that's both of them. Again, just using the same method with the Buzz Lightyear. Look in your parts bin. Be, uh, Mike and I were talking about this weekend. And Chad does this a lot too. But when you go somewhere and you're looking through stuff, like you're looking at cheap figures or whatever, you never know what might work. And Mike and I were talking about classifieds being at Ollie's or somewhere. Like, just think about how much you pay. Like, if you just wanted that Duke rifle, you might get lucky to get it for $6 for a couple dollars shipping. But when you think about things like the barbecues, the Mad Marauders barbecues that went on deep discount, there are a couple of pieces in there you could use for all kinds of customs, like the hoses. The hose is going to cost you money. It's probably worth $6 to have the hose and a few more things. And this, dumping in, I grab parts from a gung ho, grab parts from one of the Dukes that I've had. It's not that big of a deal, and some of those pieces are really good. Despite what you think about the original classified Duke, the accessories are pretty great. Yeah, not great for an ultra realistic military line, but for payload, it looked pretty good to have that rifle. And I decided to do it in orange as an homage to the '94 Star Brigade stuff that was in the bright colors. Um, yeah, Matt, we have talked about doing some more Star Brigade stuff. Uh, Stepping out a little bit. The roadblock, like I said, the 3 grenades came off of the Snake Eyes. People had tons of those Snake Eyes figures. It's
Still
just
do.
another thing you can get. Sometimes you can get the barbecues for pretty cheap. Um, I went ahead and just used Destro's neck because you really don't see it, but you can get clever with the neck. In one of the pictures that I showed in the beginning, I showed a crimson bat because crimson bats are pretty cheap right now. Their neck is fantastic. It looks like barbecue's neck. Looks really good. But for my payloads, I thought that the Destro neck was fine, so I was just going to paint it that way. But keep an eye out. You never know. You want to put Greebles on stuff. Greebles, even back to when Lucas was doing the first Star Wars. I mean, most of the guns were realistic guns with just Greebles stuck on
Yep.
them. Same thing. The models were just tons of parts from other model kits. You really never know what could be useful and maybe not. So when you're thinking about that lot of classified guns and parts, there may be just 2 pieces you ever use, but on a project like this, now Mikey will be able to attest to this, but just remember, if you make a custom and you ever want to make another one for somebody, keep the recipe. Try to remember where you got the parts from. I used to be
Yeah.
really terrible about that when we were doing 1/6 scale stuff, because if we ever want to do something again, we might have only had that one piece. We bought it at a show or something, or it came in a box. We had no idea what it came from. But there's an inspiration everywhere. Mikey did the jetpack with the classified steel core backpack, the jetpack. There's stuff in all kinds of sets that have come out, like that Sentinel makes, or that some of the off brands that Dollar General carries.
Yeah,
You'll
like
see something
the
that,
fine Final Faction figures at the Dollar Tree. Chad and Wilhelm both. They pick those up all the time. You can tell all those little pieces and stuff. Man, that makes great Greebles. Great.
yeah, I actually was, I forgot which one had some extra little arm things that held cannons, and I even thought if I did another Star Brigade figure, I'd probably give him something like that, like Predator. Uh, and the little wing set, that little jetpack that guy has, man, that is super cool.
Yeah.
I do wish there was something in classified scale that was a little more like that, because I would love to do more. I'd really like to do doing this roadblock made me think how cool it would be to do a General Hawk with the jetpack.
Oh yeah.
So like I say, there's inspiration everywhere. It's just grab something and do something cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are, and
Really cool
they're
stuff.
really cheap. Yes, it is. The Cyber Arms pack is super cool. So there's lots of things out there. Like I really just wanted to show how for around $35 you can make your own custom and have a pretty good time with it. Some anything else, and it was really surprising the first time I built that green payload how so apart.
Oh, you're breaking up.
And that would be a little tough, but it's worth it. I mean, these figures I feel look pretty good. Mikey's looks awesome. So I don't know. We probably don't have a lot of people watching or that watch this, but if you decide to do this, we would love to see like your versions of these. Like, hey, I decided to do this. It doesn't really matter if that character came with this style of armor. Forget that for a minute and just think about the colors of the Star Brigade characters that you really thought were cool or the ones that jumped out. No, nobody really thought there would be an orange astronaut, but Buzz Lightyear's orange. The kit that we used here was a Buzz Lightyear in an orange suit. So it's really not that unusual.
I mean,
the guns,
flight suits were orange. NASA flight suits.
Sure.
I mean, it's not that crazy.
It's really not. And the gold accents. Well, by making them tan, I thought that was a cool way to do that. That it was still military. On my first payload, the green one, I didn't want to do silver, so I did gold gray, light gold gray. So it's just whatever you want to do. Just make something that reminds you of the figure you want to make. So that was.
Robert,
plus, I really like payload and Robert.
G-Force, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome, thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
So that's kind of my pitch. We want to do some more stuff like this. It might not always be classified stuff, but we both talked about like starting to doing a nice simple video like this, and then maybe doing one where we show you how to dye parts, the dyeing process. It can be because you can legitimately ruin something that you paid a little money for.
Oh yeah.
And I will tell you, if you order one of these Buzz Lightyear sets, order two, so you have a backup. So if you mess something up, you have that other one. Yeah, you'll spend a little more money, but you could always repair that other one. Maybe find a way to make it look like a spacesuit skeleton, and the armor's still on it. Something cool like that. I always thought that would be a cool diorama.
Yeah.
I always liked it. In the 50s and 60s, the pulp comics and magazines always had an astronaut, a skeleton in an astronaut suit with dirt and stuff on it. I think that's a cool visual. It gives you like that idea of danger. So I think that's pretty cool. But I know a lot of people on here are already creative types. Some of these processes that customizers use, they're looked at like, oh, I could never do that. Yeah, you could. You probably could. There are things that people are always fight with. Eyes on figures. I remember when Mikey first started painting eyes compared to where he's at now. Just a huge difference. When I first started painting 1/6 scale heads to what I do now, totally different looking things. Especially 1/6 scale when you start trying to do skin tones that look more realistic. So all that kind of stuff, you're not going to learn if you don't do it. And this is a pretty good way to try to make yourself a cool custom. It doesn't have to be one of the Star Brigade guys. You may just have your own astronaut concept that you want to do, Astro Trooper, Space Marine, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
You might have your own you want to do. Just do it.
Yep.
Do it. We do have other ideas. We have an idea to do a classified homage to an Action Force 1980s version figure that they repainted a few times. We're going to do that. And what we're trying to do right now on a lot of these is we want to do something that you could use classified parts that are on the shelf and then maybe add one or two pieces that aren't. But just to show like, hey, if Hasbro really wanted to do this, they already have the molds. I know people say that all the time, but it's true. Like, and that helps with your if if you have trouble coming up with a new idea, like this is a way to come up with a new idea. Is say like, okay, here are a bunch of classified parts with them. What can I make that isn't what they make, or maybe they never will? Who knows? I mean, we may get astronaut figures at some point in classified. Probably not until other people have successful 1/12 scale astronauts or space marines.
Probably.
And then they'll say like, oh, there may be a market for that. I'll do.
Yep.
But the truth is, with this show, we just wanted to kind of we always, when we do shows and stuff, we always talk about our backgrounds, how Mikey grew up and the customizing he did when he was a kid, with just the buckets of O-ring figures that I had. So we'll probably do another show in a month or so. I don't think we'll get one more in before the DFW show. But I would say not very long after that. Those shows always give us inspiration, and it gives us a chance to walk around the sales floor and find pieces and parts we like. And almost always when Mikey and I come back from a show, we charged with some new idea. Doing a couple of KUKS was something that we've talked about for a long time. And just being able to do that now and talk to you guys and show you like some of the stuff we do. Mikey and I can brainstorm for hours in a car and then talk the next day and talk for hours again. And sometimes it's about the same stuff, and sometimes it's about a new idea, and those ideas turn into something else, and we end up with this project, which was fun because we both took the same basic concept, separated 3 hours away from each other, and both came up with something. Mikey was here this weekend. I'll tell you that.
Was, yeah.
He was, so he got kind of he kind of saw what I was working on. But when Mikey saw it, it was nowhere near done. I spent most of my day painting, and I think that's what he did too. So that's what we did. So that's kind of that's my spiel.
Well, Will, Pete, Cliff, they're wanting to see more. They're on board with this.
Well, I want to do more. I definitely want to do more about the dyeing process. And I think it'd be great for people to see more of your paint stuff. Not necessarily camo, but just, some of the tricks and tricks of the trade. You taught me something this weekend with the washes from Citadel. That is I used in those guns. They were a brighter orange, and I used that and then used a little black to blacken them up a little bit.
Yeah,
the blue armor
contrast paints. Yeah, those are
nice.
Blue
armor was a lot more blue gray, and then I used a blue wash over it, and then I went over that with some black wash, and that's how I came with what I ended up there. And when you're doing like this, you can make Bob Ross and his happy mistakes, right? Like you literally can do something and think like, I did not mean to do that, but that turned out really good.
Yeah.
So you just want to, like sometimes it's lightning in a bottle. Sometimes you can do it almost, you'll get into it and you want to do it like every time you do something. You'll be like, I got to find a way to incorporate that.
Sure.
When you start getting into texturing and stuff like that, Mikey and I talked about some of that this weekend. So there's just so much that you can do with just a few tools like that. Those tools that I showed, that's all simple stuff. Sometimes you can get Dremels for as cheap as $20. You don't have to have a cordless. In fact, unless I'm on the road, I almost prefer one of the older heavy duty ones that I can plug in because the torque is so much better on them.
Yeah.
The cutting power is a little better, and the more power it has, the more torque it has, the easier it cuts.
Yeah, I use a 3000. I don't use a cordless one, but I do have this attachment on it.
Yeah, and that's really handy.
This is a nice bit. So it's just works kind of like a speedometer cable. The cable connects to the actual Dremel, and then this is a little more handheld, a little easier to use. You can't control the speed on it. You still have to do that on the actual Dremel, but this is a really handy add-on if you end up doing a lot of Dremel work. because it's less heavy. It's easier to move with your fingers and get a smoother result.
Right.
But
Yeah,
like,
there are a lot of Dremel bits, a lot. And once you find the bit you like, you can get some of the off-brand stuff on Amazon for really good prices. You just need to know what bit you want. So I would recommend that if you're starting out, and most of the time I would recommend going to Menards. Honestly, I know that's a crazy plug, but they have really good prices on the Dremel bits. They have most of the ones you will want to use most of the
I say
time.
their selection is really good if you want to actually look at it. Like, you don't know the size, but you know what it looks like. Menards definitely works well.
For their rebate sales, just go in, spend 30-40 bucks on some bits and try some stuff out. If you're really not sure and you get one of those sets on Amazon, the Chinese versions, they're fine to learn how the bit works, to learn what kind of cut and groove you want in your bits.
Mm-hmm.
What I showed you today was more roughing in stuff because none of that was going to show when you're carving plastic or clay or dried milliput or putty. You want a little more detail orientated stuff, and we'll probably talk about that at some point. We'll do some more scratch building things.
Yeah.
Just want to do something basic and just get you started on a nice, inexpensive build that you can do on your own.
Right. Yeah, like the most of the bits I use are finer. They don't take nearly the material that the bits you were showing, which in the Buzz Lightyear case, you want that. But yeah, the three I use the most are those. So this one's kind of a flat top one, so it's just really tiny. This one's a spherical, and then this one is a shaft. That's fine. So that one works really well. I also just picked up this one, which is kind of like that last one, except it has a domed instead of a flat top. For the same reason you were talking about, because that flat top can dig in. You can go through the other side of that, like that Buzz Lightyear chest arm. You can go through it really quick.
And sometimes you want that. And if you're cutting in a sharp line into putty or something, you want that.
You can use it for sure. Yeah, it's come in handy for definitely. And then I got
if you're extending a hole out,
which is kind of like your teardrop, except it's just spherical.
Just the ball, yeah.
Yeah.
I really wish they made more like that because it would be really handy if you have to wallow out a head for a ball joint.
Oh yeah.
You could have the exact sizes you needed, but God forbid everybody use the same ball joint size.
Right, yeah, that's crazy talk. That's crazy.
Most of the 1/6 scale companies just gave in and said, you know what, we'll just send you a couple of different ways to attach the head. Good luck.
Yeah, even
try what you want.
The ones I have here, like they're all different styles. The 1/6 heads, like you get one like that's just like a cylinder inside of it. Or you could get smaller cylinders, and some of these are just hogged out because they're Chinese casts, but you get like Sideshow still uses a ball socket,
Sure.
So yeah, and the 112 stuff isn't any different. They do the same damn thing.
Yeah, I know some of the 1/6 companies just put a cylinder in there. The body comes with a cylinder just to fit those kind of heads.
Yeah, and I like a lot of the 3D printed 1/12 heads are like that too. They're like shrunken down versions of the 1/6 stuff almost. And I found a method that works really well for that, putting it on a regular, ball joint head. It's just trial and error, and so,
Yeah, not all customs are easy.
No, each one has its own little obstacle, pretty much no matter what, Even if you're just doing paint, you're trying to find that perfect shade of paint, or that right shade of green or whatever it may be. You know, or just coverage, some paint, we both have found that some paints cover better in certain colors than other brands. And like, I use a lot of Citadel, but Citadel's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. And the lid on the pot, collects paint, and then you don't get a good seal. And um yeah, just customizing is going to have its own little obstacles, but most of it is pretty easy to overcome as long as you just stay with it. Watch some randos talk about it, see what you can learn.
Right. Yeah, it's just it's one of those things. You just you get into it and you think, okay, well, I did that one time. I bet I could probably try this. And I remember the first time I did a cast with just the cheap Hobby Lobby Luma cast or whatever it's called. The first time I did that, like, I had other people like, oh, that stuff's garbage. I was like, yeah, but I used a 40% off coupon and it was cheap, and I could make all the little 1/6 scale cell phones I want.
Right. I was just thinking about that cell phone. Yeah, for sure.
So if you're just doing stuff for yourself or doing stuff like that, you can do whatever you want to do. People are going to tell you, well, if you're gonna make more than a couple, you should do this. Well, sure, but if you're just making something for yourself or for a relative or for a friend, just have fun. Just enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's not. You kind of become sour with the hobby and with the things you love. And that's right now. There's so much. Mikey and I talk about this a lot. There's so much right now that is so polarized. Everybody has an opinion, and your opinion's wrong unless it matches mine. Sure, but you try to remember what you love about toys and what you love about doing it, what the art that you put in it. The rest of it doesn't matter,
Right.
really. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta live with yourself, right? And if you do what you want to do, what you like to do a project with your kid or whatever, I mean, some of that's worth it. It doesn't. All the other stuff doesn't matter as long as you're doing what you like to do, as long as it makes you happy.
For sure. Yeah. Agreed. G4 says he likes your Starbird.
I showed it to him. The gun popped off. It's over here somewhere, but I love that. Talk about a company that figured out early on how to make like a couple of different vehicles with the exact same pieces, just painted differently. It's really cool. The Intruder's cool. The Avenger's cool. I love those toys. And the command post, I think it was called, that has the little army men with it, and the Starbird can set up on it. Just cool. Cardboard play sets are awesome.
Cardboard playsets are pretty cool. Pretty cool. You said that with only using a few pieces to make the different stuff. We were talking, me and Chad on Chad's member stream on Friday night. We were talking about the Action Force, the small vehicles, and how many different ways they found to use that chassis.
Oh, absolutely.
Completely different looking stuff. I mean, just different add-ons. Like the what was it? Is it the moon cruiser? Which one's the space one?
That you got the cruiser, you got the shadow track, you got the AF9, I think AF7 or AF9. All those vehicles use the exact same piece.
Very clever.
They were extremely good at that. They were extremely good at managing repaints and having a good time. Their cardboard playset is one of the best cardboard playsets ever. Absolutely.
So true. That thing is really cool.
I mean, that they really, and I find myself as I've gotten older to appreciate that a little more. I mean, I had a big hand in some of the design work on Complex, and that is a blast. When that stuff does ship, it's going to be awesome. And the idea of having the interconnecting panels and having different accessories you can snap into them, that is awesome. And but sometimes just the simplicity of a good toy. I I love that too. So I mean,
Sure.
the engineering. I have some engineering background, and so I love the engineering side of it, and I love toys that are, that took really clever design work, and you can see some of the stuff that GI Joe did with their vehicles, and man, those guys, they really put in the work to design some cool stuff. Not everything was cool, but there were some great vehicles, and some we didn't get that would have been great too. Uh, and when you look at the early stuff, like the whale, something like the whale is such a great toy. But at the same time, I get the same giddy feeling when I play with that Action Force playset, and I pull it out, put it on the table, and put a couple of guys on it, and set a helicopter on it. I feel pretty good about that too. So
Yeah, it's
I
rad.
don't know. It's weird. It's weird when I like so many kinds of toys, and it's just I can't pinpoint what I like, but I like the stuff that makes me feel like toys made me feel when I was a kid. There's some
Yeah.
happiness to it, some cleverness in the design. This this Alpha probe, that Fisher Price did, this little space shuttle.
Oh, that thing's awesome.
It's got a lot of cool parts. It's got a plug-in with a hose for the astronauts, or you can plug in the
Tether.
little shuttle inside of it. It's a super cool toy.
It-
Fisher Price and Palatoy were both doing really cool stuff. No, it wasn't totally military. No, it's not completely to scale. But I mean, one of the first toys I remember having that had action figures was the Fisher Price ambulance. You know, uh, and it came with paramedics at that time. The TV show Emergency was on syndication, so I really liked the whole idea of paramedics that were always on action. So I loved that thing, and then eventually I took it apart and painted it gray and made it a vehicle for the Dreadnoughts to ride. So yeah, it happens.
Sure. Sure.
But
Definitely.
again, that was a Fisher Price ambulance, and I turned it into a Dreadnought machine before the Thunder machine came out. So sometimes you can make something fairly cool out of just what you have laying around. Something you
Oh
find at
yeah.
a garage sale. I always thought this alpha probe would be pretty cool, like painted black and green, and say it's a Star Brigade for the bad guys. I don't know. I
Yeah.
got a bucket of them. I could probably do that sometime.
True.
But for a couple of shows, we are going to probably try to focus on some classified scale stuff, just to be thematic. We do want to do some more Star Brigade stuff, some stuff that's maybe a little more elaborate. We want to do our homage figure to the OG Action Force line, and several other projects that we constantly talk about and change. And after we go to Fort Worth, after we go to the DFW show, we'll probably have another idea or two to pull out. But
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I've already already started on my my Palatoy Action Force figures for in the classified stuff. I did I did a lot of dying for those. I haven't finished many of them, but it's just parts that are available. You know, mix and matching parts. Oh, there's the old styrene suppressor trick. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's there may not be a ton of figures available right now, but there is a ton of combinations of those figures where you can get a completely different character, and you were talking earlier about the where you can find the inspiration on things, you just looking at old toys and going through a thrift store or something or an antique store and seeing something you're like, "Oh man, that would be a cool project." And that's the kind of stuff that you and I share with each other on like a daily basis. We'll see something
right,
like, "Well, wouldn't this be cool?" Yeah, that would be cool.
Ron Rudess works. I don't know. We'll see. we'll see. We will see.
Yeah, so we've got lots of things we could do. We would really like to hear, what you guys would be interested in seeing. Help us point this in the direction that you guys would be the most entertained by, because we can go just about anywhere with it. We could do a some action force stuff, or we could do a subsect of GI Joe that's may not get some love for a while, like we did with Star Brigade, and you know who knows. But we'd love to have your input on that for sure. Because we got ideas to go just about any direction at this point.
Right, right. And I was serious earlier. If you guys tackle this project, I'd really, really love to see what you come up with, just to see what somebody
Oh
else
yeah.
did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We would like to see that for sure. For sure.
All right.
Well, you got anything else to show anybody, or any other things you want to talk about, or?
No, not for this show.
All right. Well, guys, everybody, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you watching us. Happy Memorial Day. Remember, hope you guys kept in mind what this holiday is all about. I know I did. I spent my time with family and friends, and I think that's pretty much what matters to me. So hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. Hope you enjoyed not working today if you got that privilege. Um, we appreciate you watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Till then,
Thanks a lot,
you have a
guys.
good one. All right.